Generally believe the world is a beautiful place. Everybody wants to help everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a nice bunch of people.
Yeah.
We are just, like somebody said, we are just a lot of triggered children in the garb of being adults. Okay, so if one triggered child decides to become an adult, I think he helps the other triggered child to stop responding like that.
That's
Yeah.
very well said. I mean, and it's very true.
Yeah. They always tell me, कोई problem ही नहीं है. There's nothing.
Mm.
My conversations always start from, I don't know what to say to you, there is no problem. Okay. And then when we start the conversations, by the time they finish the first session, they're like, oh my God, I have goals now. I didn't know I have these emotional goals and these personal well-being goals, these mental health goals. Now I have goals.
When I was diagnosed with psoriasis, this is about 9 years back, people had no idea what autoimmune condition is.
Right.
When I used to tell people that I have a condition called autoimmune, people used to actually look at me cluelessly.
I'll be very honest, even I'm not aware.
That emotional trigger, or what we call stress, emotions are not just your feelings which are in your heart, poetically speaking. They are genuine chemical reactions that happen all across your body. Oh my God, I can't give up food.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm not asking you to give up food. I'm just asking you to give up certain things.
Right.
I'm like, no, I can't. I just can't.
Think cheat meals which make you so happy.
Yeah.
From there,
Yeah.
they're very important.
So don't hesitate on having that glass of wine.
No, wine
Wine
is
is
a part
ne-
of my diet, by
Yes.
the way. So wine
It's never
is
a cheat meal.
something-
It's always welcome.
Wine is not a cheat meal. Wine is a
Yeah.
part of the diet.
And I just believe that these labeling of diets is what is causing a lot of food anxiety among people, right? I mean, why should you even call it a cheat meal? Who are you cheating? You're eating something which is making you happy, and that's fine.
That is
You don't want to have these conversations. You want
Yes.
to run away,
Yes.
and you don't want to say, you know what, I played a role in my problem.
yes.
Generally, we have this misconception that men don't speak about mental health, or men do not confide easily. It was wrong. He was waiting to find somebody to talk to.
Wow.
Trust me, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised where, your senior people in your house would say, okay, yeah, really, I want to talk to somebody. Come at a time when it is not an autoimmune condition, because it's not that your body is not showing signs. So these are all very early indicators that you're heading down a dangerous path.
Right.
I think one of the funniest things, that it's the thing, not really, the situation is not funny, it's just a funny approach that happens, is when parents come with their kids
Right.
and they tell me that, the child needs help.
Right.
And I tell them, that's a child, you will be part of the process. No, I don't need help.
Right.
I'm fine, I'm good. The child is the problem.
Right.
Okay, so you have to help the
course.
child. Say, listen, you guys, y'all are not aligned, okay? Y'all are the ones who are ruining me. If you don't want that situation to happen, you better become part of the process.
If we have a doctor, why do I need a health coach? Firstly, I wanted to thank both of you for coming on Fem Talkies podcasts.
Our pleasure.
And on such a last minute notice, most importantly, very kind of you, and I'm very intrigued by what both of you are doing and how you guys are healing people as a team. So I want to start with you, Palak, first. Please, I want to know more about psoriasis and how, I didn't know it was a very common disease in India, especially amongst women.
Yes. So, when I was diagnosed with psoriasis, this is about 9 years back,
Okay,
people had no idea what autoimmune condition is.
right,
When I used to tell people that I have a condition called autoimmune, people used to actually look at me cluelessly,
okay.
trying to find out what exactly autoimmune is.
I'll be very honest, even I'm not aware. So if you had to explain autoimmune to a layman, what would you say?
So, when your immunity, which is actually supposed to be protecting you,
Yeah,
starts attacking your body, attacking your tissues and cells, that's what autoimmune is.
okay,
So, there are 80 kind of autoimmune conditions.
Okay.
There's psoriasis, there's psoriatic arthritis,
Okay.
lupus, MS,
Okay.
rheumatoid arthritis, and many more.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with psoriasis about 9 years back.
Okay.
It started with, so there's always an emotional trigger why the disease comes in your body. There's always an emotional trigger. And my trigger was I lost my mom.
Yes.
10 years back, I lost my mom.
Yes.
The whole, I had to, suddenly I became the mother of the family. I had to take care of my dad. I had to take care of my sister.
Yes.
I had 2 young kids. They were my son, he was hardly 3 months.
Oh.
My daughter was 2 years old. And suddenly, I think that stress
Yeah.
just came on to me.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone gave it to me. I just took it. It's like, the elder kid of the family.
Yeah.
You just take all the responsibility
Yeah.
on your own.
Yeah.
And the whole stress came on me, and I took it up as my own responsibility to take care of them,
Yes.
forgetting myself. So, in a year's time, my sister got married, and I remember as soon as she got married, a day later,
Yeah.
I had lesions on my skin.
Oh.
Just a day later.
Okay.
And I didn't know what they were. I had no idea what they were. And I told my dad, who also is a doctor, and he suggested that we show it, to a doctor in Ames. I went there. Firstly, they said eczema, and then eventually they figured out it is psoriasis.
Okay.
I had a very hard time.
Okay.
Psoriasis is, when you think about a disease called psoriasis, it seems to be a very simple word.
Yeah.
But when a woman gets it,
Yeah.
it's so difficult to go through it. My feet used to be bleeding. I
Oh.
couldn't walk.
Okay.
And then, you have this mental trauma that you start going through, because if you think that, okay, maybe it'll come on your face.
Yeah.
It had started coming on my scalp.
Okay.
And my hand started getting lesions.
Oh my God.
It was very difficult for me to work anywhere, to do any kind of writing, to work in the kitchen, to do any kind of work. And it was very, very disheartening to see myself.
It sounds like such a hard time because you had 2 dependent children,
Yes.
and which means a lot of work in itself, irrespective of how much help you have.
Absolutely.
And it's very interesting that you're saying this, that you suffered a lot, but when you went to a doctor at Ames and you started your allopathic treatment.
Yes.
So how was that journey? What happened? Did you see immediate?
So, unfortunately, during my journey of psoriasis, I did not see any kind of difference.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to be literally crying in the nights, my feet were bleeding, I couldn't walk, I didn't know what kind of footwear I can wear.
Yeah.
And I was feeling as if my life is going. And, unfortunately, a year later, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis.
Okay.
And psoriatic arthritis is where your joints start getting affected.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I had pain in all my joints.
Oh.
So
In addition to the lesions, and
absolutely.
I'm very surprised because Ames is,
Yes.
people come from all over the world for
Of course.
their treatments, and
Yes.
and then what happened?
So I feel, Medha, it's not about the creams that I was being given or the Ames doctor. I think what happened is that any kind of treatment is incomplete without the nourishment. A medicine can only do its part. Simple, it's a 20% to your treatment.
Okay.
The rest of the nourishment comes from your primary food. And your
Okay.
primary food is the love, the care, the
Yeah.
other parts which are required.
Yeah.
That is the emotional healing, mental healing,
Yeah.
your, how
Even your
you
nutritional,
yeah, of course. So, all that was missing. So when I got diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, I had to go to a rheumatologist, and the
Yeah.
rheumatologist suggested that I
Yeah.
start taking steroid,
Yeah.
and I was put on a steroid, and of course I started feeling better
Yeah.
because steroids, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Instant,
And
yeah.
absolutely. In 3 months' time, I started feeling better, but
Yeah.
I realized that I don't want to live my life like this.
Okay.
I cannot be on steroids all my life
Right.
because they will start hampering my organs eventually.
The side effects are very strong.
Horrible. Like, I used to get those side effects where I used to be like, either puking or getting high fever. I
Yeah.
was not being able to spend the quality time I could with my family or with my friends, and that was hampering my daily life. So I had to take this decision where I said, okay, you know what? I am going to be taking this medication,
Yeah.
but I'm going to make a change. I'm going to change my lifestyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I sat with my doctors, I sat with my dad, who's a doctor himself, and I sat with my husband because I had to make it sure that they are convinced how much I am convinced about it,
Right.
to make that lifestyle change.
Right.
To make it sure that, okay, you know what, I'm going to be taking this medication, but only for a limited time.
Yeah.
But after that, I want to change my lifestyle
Yeah.
and I want to get healthy.
It sounds like a lot of mental resilience, and it sounds like a lot of determination from your end to take your health in your hands.
Yes.
So speaking about mental resilience, Dr. Bhavna, I'm coming to you, and can you tell me how important is it before I get to your journey and your story,
Right.
how important is it for someone to have their mental health in their control, in their own hands, when they are going through an autoimmune disease?
So, Medha, that's a fantastic question, because when people generally talk about mental health, they only look at it as a brain issue. They forget that mental health doesn't just affect the way you think, it'll affect the way you behave, it'll affect the way you choose things, it'll affect the journey that you decide to take on.
Yeah.
So your mental health being in its, let's say, optimal functioning is
Yeah.
going to ensure that you have your motivation in place, it's going to have your determination, that positive outlook, and all of these elements
Yeah.
need to be carried together, especially when you're going through a journey of a chronic ailment, right? It's not getting over tomorrow. I cannot set a deadline on when this journey will end, right? It's something that you're going to live
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to function optimally every single morning.
Yeah.
There are days when I know Palak's journey very closely, and I know
Yeah.
that there are days when, despite having done everything correctly,
Yeah.
you still have a flare up.
Yes. Yes.
Then to get up and push yourself again and say, okay, I restart.
Yeah.
I go back to basics.
Yeah.
So your mental health at no point of time detaches itself from your physical health journey ever. In
Right.
fact, what she rightly pointed out, that there is an emotional trigger
Yeah.
before you actually start getting the diagnosis. That emotional trigger, or what we call stress, it's nothing but a lot of chemical reactions within, right? Emotions
Right.
are not just your feelings which are in your heart, poetically speaking. They are genuine chemical reactions that happen all across your body.
Okay.
So when you say a trigger, it is not just a trigger because I felt hurt. It's a trigger because there was a chemical reaction which elevated my adrenaline, which elevated my cortisol, and it could not
Right.
bring it back down to normal. And that's the reason why I'm in the state that I am. So when we talk about mental health, emotional health, at no point of time in any healing journey, you can take the two out. So they have to be along with the person from start to end.
I'm surprised that usually doctors never mention these aspects that you are
Right.
clearly highlighting, and again, it's a pleasant surprise that you're a doctor.
Yes.
And you're speaking this way, so it's a very pleasant surprise. I want to know about, how did you get into this space? How was your journey like before becoming Dr. Bhavna?
So I went into the conventional medicine route, and I absolutely loved my journey, learning medicine the way it was.
Okay.
And I realized that despite having our science in place, the best of doctors in place, we
Yeah.
were never sending out patients who were happy, healthy, and were managing their lives, the quality of their lives,
Yeah,
primarily
like a
speaking.
holistic.
Yes. So I would be very intrigued that despite having done everything the way it should be in your textbook, right? There's a
Right.
proper algorithm that is followed by doctors.
Yeah.
Having done all of that, why am I not upping the quality of life of the person who's walking out?
Right.
And why am I not able to assist and support the people who are around this particular patient too? Because they are as much a part of the
Journey.
disease
Yeah,
or
yeah,
the treatment.
yeah.
So all of that made me initially feel that maybe it is a lack of structure, it is a lack of the administrative support, and that's the reason why after my clinical practice I actually moved towards administration. I worked for a long time with hospitals, with the insurance industry, understanding the entire ecosystem of health
Okay.
till it's been a long journey, not like a sudden tube light moment, till I realized that the biggest lack of focus in our country, which unfortunately remains even today, is the focus on preventive health, is a focus on mental health, is a focus on understanding that health has components like social well-being, your financial well-being. All these are components of health.
Very much.
Yeah, and it was my journey, I think, at TIS, where we did my master's in healthcare administration, which was the biggest highlight in showing that we were looking at health in a very myopic way. So that from there, now then, it's been an ever, it's been a big
Evolving.
search. Yes, it's been a big search, which is still ongoing,
Yes.
to find out what other elements of health are we missing out while we work with patients or while we heal patients.
It's very interesting when you say preventive health care, and when you shared about the emotional trigger that happened in your life. I feel as a society we don't know how to grieve. Like the process of grieving, people don't understand that it's a process and it's a step-by-step journey. So I want to understand, Palak, that how did you then, after you got your diagnosis and after you started your treatment and you decided that, okay, I'm going to take health into my hands, were you able to, how did you nurture your emotional health? What were the steps that you took? What was your journey like after that?
So, I had to make major changes in my lifestyle. Like, we're not, the way we grew up and how we live our life, my lifestyle had to change completely. I had to change what I'm eating. I had to change the way how I'm breathing. I had to change the way I exercise. And most important part was, Medha, I had to look inside emotionally, because that emotional toxicity, where, as you said rightly, I had not grieved for my mom, so that was still lacking. So I mean, I I didn't realize in the 2 years where I was taking care of my family, I forgot I had to grieve myself. I forgot that, even I had lost my mom. So till the time I didn't grieve and I did not go to a emotional healing expert, that was Dr. Bhavna, who helped me do it, I did not heal. I changed my diet. I started, exercising lightly the way I'm supposed to be, because my joints were affected. I used to be in very bad pain. I could not even get up sometimes from the bed, but I had to still make couple of movements, which were very light movements. I had to inculcate breath work. But till the time I did not meet Dr. Bhavna and work on my emotional part, I did not heal completely.
Dr. Bhavna, how was her healing process? How did you, of course, I can't even if I try to understand remotely how difficult the journey would have been, but how did you handhold her through the process?
So Metha, like she said, right, that she had a lot of her elements already in place.
Right.
The nutrition was fine, she was exercising correctly, she was focusing on her breath work, but at the end of the day, again, we were missing out the main component, which was how she really connects with stress. How does she really cope with stress? How does she really assess those triggers which will keep coming back again and again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, man is a social animal. We live in social structures. The triggers are never going to go away.
Right.
Yeah. So unless I could work with her on helping her understand how she responds,
Yeah.
we would never be able to really, how do you say, empower her
Right.
to react and respond the right way.
Right.
You know,
Because
so-
triggers, they come unannounced. Like we don't know what is going to
absolutely.
trigger us.
And that is where you get your unconscious to your conscious, right?
Right.
So the triggers till they kept happening unconsciously. For example, for the longest time, Palak probably didn't realize, but every time she would come closer to her mom's anniversary,
Yeah.
the trigger would build up.
Right.
You know, the body would start sending out signals
Yeah.
that it's not completed. And we, like she said, right, that because the grieving was not complete, how do you tell somebody that it's been 3 years, it's been 10 years, but I still need to grieve?
Right.
It doesn't make sense to you either, right? So you close yourself to it. You close yourself to even talking about it to somebody else. You even think twice before going to your partner or your spouse and saying, you know what, I'm still grieving.
Right.
Nobody tells you it's okay. It's just the most significant relationship in your life. So there's no timeline to the amount of
Yes.
grief that you have, you know, for
Yes.
that person. So
Yes.
so those were the things, bringing to awareness that what triggers her, how does she respond when she gets triggered, and why does she respond that way?
I think as a society, we focus too much on moving on
Correct.
from any kind of problem.
Yes.
Even when we go and work out in a gym, most of the trainers are always focused on work out faster, work out more, push yourself, do more reps.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone's body or mind may or may not be ready for something like this. And I feel as a society we've failed to address the importance of taking things one day at a time, going
Yeah.
step by step.
Because I believe there's this whole emphasis, and I think social media, of course, adds to it, where you need to be happy. Everybody's selling happiness. Okay,
Right.
Lose weight, get happy. Look a certain way, get happy. If your child has not, passed and not gotten good grades, how to become happy very quickly. So we are on this race to become happy. And just today, I read this beautiful article where somebody said that why are we not fighting to sell wholeness? Wholeness would be that, yes, I am sad, I'm angry, I grieve, I'm happy, and me being able to process all of it in a healthy way is what we have to aim for, not getting to happiness,
Right.
everywhere. Yeah.
Right. I feel people who are, say, depressed or sad, or could be clinically depressed,
Yeah.
they are looked upon as second-rate citizens.
Yeah.
Sometimes, that this person is, leave this person alone. You're sad, leave this person alone. So, Palak, I want to know now, after your journey, and then you took your health into your hands, and then you started to see a change.
Yes, I started to see a change within 6 months, and but what also happened is that yes, I started seeing the change, but within 2 years, I think I was hospitalized couple of times. Yes, because I was doing everything. I was taking care of the nutrition part. I was taking care of my exercise. I was doing the breath work. But till then, I had not taken care of my emotional toxicity.
Right.
So it took about 2 years for me to wholly get healed and feel better and come to a level where, I could say, yes, you know what? There are good days and bad days. There are days where I feel 100%, but there are days where I feel 20%.
I remember meeting you before, and I had met you in Goa once. And I remember that we had I think the conversation was almost close to spiritual.
Yes.
Because there was a sudden awareness in her, which I saw, and coincidentally, probably during a similar time, I had been through my yoga journey.
Yeah.
And there was the conversation was very spiritual in a way.
Yes.
What has been your experience in dealing with people, their nutrition?
Sure. So, Meda, when I started my own journey, and
Yeah.
you know, I had to restrict a lot of diet, you know,
Okay.
eliminate a lot of stuff from my plate.
Like?
So, I had to remove gluten from my, diet, of course, because that was harming my gut totally. There was elimination of lactose.
Huh.
I had to stop milk consumption because it's the quality of the milk that you get in the country.
Right.
The the amount of hormones that they inject,
Yeah.
and the same hormones you are having in your body
Hmm.
is something which doesn't go with the disease, the chronic illness I'm talking about, which I
Right.
had.
Right.
So there were a couple of eliminations which I had to do, but to tell you the truth, there were nothing in front of the kind of medication that was being given to me.
Correct.
You know, the strong medications that I was having
Yeah.
and the side effects those medications were giving me.
Yeah.
So these eliminations of, you know, the dietary
Yeah.
changes that I had to make, they were simpler. I said, okay, you know what? I just have to eat this, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay not eating like wheat. I'm okay not having milk. I'm okay not having non with chicken for a while
Yeah.
because, you know, again, they're full of antibiotics. Like a couple of things which I had to remove from my system. But as I said, there were nothing in front of the medication that was being given to me. So I was okay to make these changes. But to tell you the truth, these changes, when I made, and this lifestyle change with these dietary changes, eventually became my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it became very convenient for me. You know, we all say, oh, you know what, it's very difficult for me to not have wheat. It's very difficult for me not to have milk. But
Right.
today, I think it's been 9 years, I've not had wheat, right? I don't say that I don't binge. I, of course, binge for a pizza, and I go and have a slice of pizza, of course. I go and have my cold coffee at Deepol's. There's no doubt about it. I'll never miss one. But the fact is that I have made it sure that my body has come to a level where it can take these, milk as a poison in my body is not a poison anymore. If I
Okay.
take it once in a blue moon,
Okay.
you know, it will not react in the manner it would react otherwise.
The body's internally become that resilient.
Yes,
Correct.
absolutely.
I see.
So I think it's a myth when we think about the fact that, you know, we have to make these dietary changes and we come with a closed mind. So whenever to my patients, I always tell them that if you're coming to me, come with that belief, because you have to believe in me. And once you have that belief, the treatment will start working on you. So that's very, very important. And secondly, I also believe is that, you know, Meda, that the diagnosis,
Yeah.
the doctors do the diagnosis, there's no doubt. But going to the root cause is more important, which I don't think the doctors are able to do so. Which I told you initially is either it's an emotional trigger or a physical trigger.
Yeah.
What kind of a trigger got the disease in the body? We need to go to the root cause. So that's a
Right.
very, very important factor of the treatment of any chronic disease. So, and thirdly, nourishment. Again, which I spoke about initially, the primary food. You know, the nourishment from the family, the nourishment that comes with, you know, the amount of love that is required.
Yeah.
You know, it's not only the food that you're eating, it's not only the breath work. I might keep eating the same food, I might keep doing the breath work, the
Yeah.
right exercise, I
Yeah.
will go to the emotional counselor.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I need that primary food. And that primary food involves the love, the care, the family, the relationships,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
if I don't have that,
Yeah.
the healing is only 50%.
Right.
So the nourishment from the
Yeah.
family, the relationships that you build up
Yeah.
is extremely important, I feel.
So having healthy relationships
Absolutely.
and stable relationships.
Extremely important. Extremely important. Because I think that is one factor which was a big pillar to my healing. You know, my husband was there, my kids were there, my dad is there, my sister was there. Like the whole family was standing with me
Your
and saying, "Don't."
constants.
Absolutely, and saying that, "Don't worry, you're going to get okay." You know, they were there with me. So that itself just heals you.
Right.
And my amazing friends, you know, whom I could talk to.
Yeah.
Because once you have these amazing relationships, your health journey becomes much, much more easier.
Simpler.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
I feel as a society, you know, where families are becoming smaller by the day.
Yeah.
Our parents are in touch with their second cousins, third cousins, whereas we living as nuclear families in bigger cities, probably lucky to be in touch with our first cousins, and very few of my friends are still in touch with their first cousins. How does one build a healthy ecosystem of strong, stable relationships? Because again, everyone is not blessed enough to have
That
everybody,
structure,
yes, around them, that kind of structure. Some people, you know, I feel a lot of millennials and Gen Zs, they're very ambitious. They leave their hometowns, move to larger cities. Again, there are lifestyle changes, things are so different. Is there any way that you help your patients kind of build a good support system around them? What do you advise them?
Of course, our community, you know, is something we've been working with since last couple of years.
Yeah.
See, why I got into this area
Yeah.
also was because of my own journey.
Yeah.
During my own journey, I realized
Yeah.
that there was a requirement for a community, for someone to understand me. Of course, my family was there, my friends were there,
Yeah.
but they did not understand
Yeah.
or relate to what I'm going through,
Yes.
the pain I'm going through.
Yes.
So, having similar kind of people who
Yeah.
have gone through that journey was very important. So, I built up a community where I had similar kind of people who have gone through the similar kind of journey,
Okay.
and talking to them, making it sure, coming together once in a while, talking about each other's story,
Yeah.
made it easier for everyone. Because, you know, having a big family, yes, it helps. But this journey that I went through,
Yeah.
no one could understand.
Right.
No one could relate to what I'm going through. Sometimes, you know, Medha, I'll tell you the truth, I was in so much of pain that, you know, I used to actually think to myself that why the hell did I not have cancer?
Oh.
Because people would have understood what I'm going through. They don't know what I'm going through. They do not understand that, you know, I have an autoimmune condition and the kind of pain that I am in.
Right.
At least if I say cancer, then people will know what
There's an empathy.
Yes. So that community was extremely important to make it sure that like-minded people are coming
Right.
to talk to each other
Yeah.
and talk about each other's story
Yeah.
and soothing each other, I would say.
So
if I can
yeah.
just add, you know, to this element where
Yeah.
the communities coming together become an important part of the healing. But if you have to really start the question that you asked on how, you know, millennials and the coming generations with their nuclear and smaller structured family, how do they create that ecosystem and support?
Yeah.
None of this, whether it's a big family or a nuclear family, is possible unless you first work on a healthier relationship with yourself. I can have 10 people around me and I can be conflicting with each one of them every single day, only adding to my stress. Like she said, right? She could just have built up on that anger that nobody is understanding what I'm going through.
Right.
She could have been yelling out to each of them.
Right.
But to, you know, coming to terms, coming at peace with yourself first,
Yeah.
that, okay, I have this disease, this is how my journey is going to be, it's not going to be easy. Learning that acceptance, in fact, evolved her relationships much further, because I have seen her grow through her relationships now. So so we start believing that this is how it was. It wasn't. I've seen the hard work that she's put in, and I've seen the journey, the trajectory she's had with her relationships, where things were completely out of control, to now believing that, oh my God, this is a beautiful ecosystem that I have. It didn't
Okay.
happen overnight, So there was a
Right.
lot of work done by her first with herself, which automatically translated in the way she connected with them. So anybody out there who's, let's say, finding themselves not having a very great structure around, there's nothing to worry. It doesn't mean your healing is not possible. Start with that relationship with yourself.
With yourself.
And you'll be amazed as to how people start connecting with you after that. Like you said, right? Surprisingly, the two of you all met and had that conversation
Yeah,
because you all were
yeah.
at a certain stage in healing, otherwise you all wouldn't have had that conversation.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, it wouldn't be possible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it always starts with the relationship you have with yourself. Others start coming back into place, because I generally believe the world is a beautiful place. Everybody wants to help everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a nice bunch of people.
Yeah.
We are just, like somebody said, we are just a lot of triggered children in the garb of being adults. Okay, so if one triggered child decides to become an adult, I think he helps the other triggered child to stop responding like that.
That's very well said. I mean, and it's very true.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, what is the most interesting of the cases that, if you could, of course, anonymously discuss here on the podcast, somebody who you really felt that, apart from Palak, of course, who you really felt you were able to transform with
Yeah.
nutrition and with the right mental health guidance. How did you, if you could think of any?
So yeah, I had a patient, who basically came to me, and she had rheumatoid arthritis, and she was in a lot of pain. And we started working together. I worked on her nutrition part. Eventually, her, yoga was inculcated, and she was doing everything right. All the pillars were being taken care of. And I think it was about 3 months, and she said that she's still in a lot of pain,
Yeah.
and this was in spite of the fact that she was taking medications.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted her to reduce her medication, and because the kind of pain she was in, the pain was not like going to go without the medication. So
Right.
we were like, trying to still figure out where are we not, because all the tick marks were being done.
Okay.
Yeah, she was like, nutrition part was being taken care of. She was doing her breath work every day.
Yeah.
She was exercising every day. Her family was okay, but in the sense, I think she had taken a bold choice of taking this healing journey with the consent of the family, but the family was not very supportive.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's when she went to Dr. Bhavna, because Dr. Bhavna and me worked together.
Yeah.
And that's when she went to Dr. Bhavna. Until I think Dr. Bhavna did not figure out what exactly was the emotional trigger or where she had to work on, the pains did not reduce.
Yeah.
So I think it took about
Took a long time,
Yeah,
because it's,
yeah.
it's difficult to acknowledge, right? That there is a problem in my personal existence, disease apart. It's easier to speak about the disease than the personal part of it, So, in fact, very interestingly, if I can add, 99% of the times, Medha, when they come to me, they always tell me, "Koi problem hi nahi hai. There's nothing." My conversations always start from, "I don't know what to say to you. There is no problem." Okay. And then when we start the conversations, by the time they finish the first session, they're like, "Oh my God, I have goals now. I didn't know I have these emotional goals and these personal well-being goals, these mental health goals. Now I have goals."
Right.
Because like I said, it just doesn't come to our recognition that this is also an element of my well-being. So,
Right.
I mean, the way Palak said, in fact, I would really like to talk about cases which broke stereotypes for me
Okay.
early on in the practice. We usually know that autoimmune happens in women. I got a male patient of an autoimmune condition. Again, he was brilliantly doing on everything which was structured. Nutrition plan,
Yes.
supplements, breath work. It was the emotional healing part, the counseling part, which amazed me, because generally we have this misconception that men don't speak about mental health. or men do not confide easily. It was wrong. He was waiting to find somebody to talk to.
Wow.
And his healing went so beautifully, and I told him that I'm so proud that you actually took this initiative, because I'm sure for him to go and tell somebody I'm going to a holistic healer for my autoimmune condition wouldn't have been easy. His family didn't understand what he was doing in counseling. They
Right.
said, I mean, typically they said, you're not mad, why do you need a counselor? And he stuck by his decision. I need to speak to somebody, because he realized it was eating him up. His
Right.
diagnosis was eating him up.
Right.
You
Wow.
know, so one was that. Another misconception I think that people have is that the older generation is not open to mental health issues. I've had cancer patients in their 60s, in their 70s respond beautifully to the treatment and respond beautifully to counseling, and they are again a population which is waiting to talk,
Right.
right? Because aging has its own set of challenges.
Absolutely.
And I've had delightful results with people, at that age too. Because usually even children do not approach their parents to offer them counseling help, because they're like, oh my God, I don't know how my father or mother would react if I ever said, go for counseling. Trust me, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised where, your senior people in your house would say, okay, yeah, really, I want to talk to somebody. So I've had amazing experiences. There have been so many gender or age-related stereotypes which have been broken. I've had patients of PCOS who are as young as probably 12 or 13, who have been so open to the idea. They've gone to their parents and said, I need counseling therapy. Find me a therapist, with so much of clarity. I've had 70-year-old men come and say, okay, you know what, I need counseling help for my relationship, for my marital relationship, even at that age. So I believe as a society, we have these notions that people don't want help. People are waiting out there to go be asked, do you need help? And I think most of them would be willing to come and take that help.
Seek
Which is,
help.
yes.
This brings me to a very important question, that a lot of people want to seek help,
Yeah.
but are not able to find the right mental health
Correct.
advisor,
Yeah.
a counselor, a psychiatrist or psychologist. Can you tell me, say, the top 3 things one should look for in their mental health coach?
Yeah. So again, fantastic question, because this is also to every single healer and mental health expert out there. Not every patient is a right fit for you. Okay. And it's not about you being a lesser coach or a lesser qualified person. It's just about that fit. So to every person out there also who's seeking help, the first thing I would tell you to look for is that sense of ease. Is your coach, is your mental health expert offering you that space of ease where you feel heard?
Right.
Okay, number
Right.
one. Number two, are your goals and your coach's goals aligning?
Okay.
So I usually tell my counselees, I can work with whichever goal you decide to set forth. It can happen that during the course of counseling, you get those ideas that I need to modify my goal. That's perfectly fine, but you need to start. Even if it's a small goal, you need to start with the goal.
Right.
So for example, even if anybody has to go to Palak about say psoriasis, or has to go to her about any other autoimmune condition,
Yeah.
there has to be a sense of goal. You can have a goal saying, you know what, I don't want to give up all of my nutrition, but I want to be able to manage with medication and a little bit of modification with
Right,
this. So then she can orient the entire plan accordingly. I have always believed there cannot be a very rigid dichotomous way of looking at health. You either do this or don't come to me ever.
Right.
That should never be the case, because
Right.
you never know at what stage of healing the other person is at.
Yeah.
So you meet them for their needs out there.
Yeah.
So number 2, find out whether your goals match or not. And number 3, you need to be able to assess every single day that there is an incremental change. I usually tell, again, another thing I tell my counselees, that I would not like you to be in unlimited sessions for the rest of your life with me.
Right.
I have to empower you in such a way that you are able to now consolidate whatever we've done, the work
Yeah.
we've done, and actually implement them,
Right.
so that you
Right.
don't keep coming back for
Right.
support. So it cannot be a dependent relationship.
Right. So
You
the
know, so-
sign of a good therapist is that you don't keep going back again and again to therapy.
In fact, that should be the aim of every doctor too. A doctor has to start with the aim that
Yeah.
I should not have this person come back to me
Coming back again and again. So, is autoimmune like a chronic disease like autoimmune? Is it common for kids to have it nowadays?
Very common, actually.
Has it increased over?
Within the kids, not as much, but yes, within the population,
Yeah.
post-COVID,
Yeah.
we are seeing a lot of cases. I'm seeing a lot of cases coming up to me complaining of joint pains, maybe RA, or getting diagnosed with psoriasis or eczema. Post-COVID, it's been very, very bad.
Yeah.
The numbers have really increased. So,
and not just now, right? I mean, if you look at the general trend, obesity in India is on the rise among kids. Diabetes among kids is on the rise. So with all of these lifestyle factors put in, it's like a boiling pot for any of the autoimmune conditions to occur too. So we are creating an unhealthy environment. It's just a matter of time when all of these ailments also start becoming more common with kids.
Interesting. So I want to know now. So I mean, it takes a village to not just raise a child. I think to heal yourself and to come out of, maybe to heal your inner child and to come out of something. So we have doctors. We have like so many options these days. I want to know how. What is a health coach if a layman comes? And I remember having difficulty explaining a motivational coach, to my friends and my family. And I genuinely felt the need for a motivational coach along with a therapist when I was restarting my business. So I want to know what is a health coach and how does the health coach help someone?
So I think, Medha, it's very important for a health coach to work along with the patient and not sympathize but empathize. So when I work with my patients, I put myself in their shoes because I've already gone through it. So I know, the kind of pain that they're going through. So it becomes a little easy for me to actually treat them because I relate to the kind of pain that they're going through.
I have a very auntie question,
Sure,
if
go
you don't
ahead.
mind me asking.
Not at all.
Because I can imagine what somebody, what somebody could ask.
Yeah.
If we have a doctor,
Yeah.
why do I need a health coach?
Sure. So, the doctor is going to do his or her job by giving you the medication.
Yeah.
They do not have the time to take care of you beyond medication.
Right.
You go to them, they'll prescribe you the medication. But beyond that,
Yeah.
healing needs an environment,
Yeah.
right? That is the kind of environment that I or any health coach tries to give the patient
Yeah.
to nourish you
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, physically. So the nourishment that you need, your dietary nourishment, your the kind of exercise that you need, the kind of breath work you need,
Yeah.
and the kind of emotional need that is required, which
Yeah.
is of course given by Dr. Bhavna because we work together. And
Yeah.
so that is where exactly my work and Dr. Bhavna's work comes beyond the doctor's prescription.
I was so surprised hearing the two examples that you quoted from your patients. You said that these people were getting their nutritional needs met.
Yes.
They were doing breath work. So these are people who have decently healthy lifestyles.
Correct.
Still, they are suffering from, certain problems and chronic problems,
Yes.
which they have not been able to find
Absolutely.
remedies for.
Yeah.
So how do you? So again, in terms of having this holistic treatment done, what kind of a person at what stage of, say, an autoimmune illness should or can come to you?
When should a patient come to a health coach or an autoimmune coach? I would like to go a step further and say come at a time when it is not an autoimmune condition, because It's not that your body is not showing signs. So ask yourself simple questions. What's the quality of life that you are leading? Are you popping pills? Acidity ka pill, headache ka pill. How many pills are you popping in a day? What is the quality of your relationships? Are you constantly warring with your spouse, with your children, with your neighbor, with your bosses?
Yeah.
You know, are you going to bed and having a good night's sleep? Or is there a challenge falling asleep, waking up? Are you dependent upon substances?
Yeah.
So these are all very early indicators that you're heading down a dangerous path.
Right.
You know, so if you really want to come to a health coach and prevent yourself from landing in a disease, start your assessment there.
Right.
Because a health coach, because there a doctor does not play a role.
Yes.
There a health coach will come and play a role.
Yes.
You know, so before a diagnosis.
I also am going to add to this, and why I feel people should and could go and approach this holistic way is because one needs a focused approach to, you know, treating themselves.
Yeah.
So like you can start taking medicines, but like if you're fighting every day, if you're stressed out every day, how many medicines can you pop?
Correct.
You can go to one Ayurvedic doctor, or you know, then sometimes I have tried Ayurvedic treatments. Sometimes they are so strong, body may or may not support. Then who do you go and ask that question to? You know, and then you go to an allopathic doctor, and that person will say, okay, you know, like this is what I can give you, and you cannot take anything. You know, there are so many permutations, combinations for a layman, a non-medical person from a non-medical background to just treat themselves and feel healthy and normal, which everybody has the right to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just to add these things, because you're right, when the idea of health coach, the idea of let's say a healing consultant, a lifestyle consultant, a lot of terminologies are out there.
Yes.
What makes that difference is, number one, a lifestyle consultant or a health coach is your partner in the entire process. So it's going to be a two-way communication that happens. Number two, it's a long-term change that we are talking about. I'm not talking about your symptoms getting rid of. Okay, so to give you a very small example, you have been suffering from acidity that is disrupting your sleep. If you go to a doctor, the doctor's job is to immediately alleviate your symptom.
Right.
And they will give you the medicine that's going to do the job and send you back. That's the symptom that I'm suppressing. Is that the root cause? No.
No.
The root cause could be completely different. It could be an H. pylori infection, or it could be a leaky gut that you're experiencing.
Right.
A health coach then goes beyond that, because a health coach is going to bring about that long-term transformation so that you don't start relying upon medications.
Right.
So that's the main difference between a health coach and a doctor. Number two, a health coach is able to customize things for you.
Right.
Medicine is not customizable that way, right? I mean,
Right.
Conventional medicine is supposed to be, like I said, in a very algorithmic way. You have this symptom, this is what you do,
Yes.
these are the tests that you run.
Yes.
A health coach works with you in an entirety. They know the person you are.
Yes.
They know the resources you have. They know the
Yes.
support structure you have. So if Palak has to design a plan for an autoimmune patient, she's not going to say, okay, please eat these exclusive things, without taking into consideration that she's a mother who also has to look after a family.
Yes.
And, will she be able to devote that time, not devote that time,
Yes.
and how to create a plan which works for her.
Right.
So those things probably differ a health coach from a doctor. But in our experience, we've been working wonderfully with doctors together. Because then that becomes a complete spectrum of care.
Exactly.
End to end.
Yeah. I think a lot of people which doctor asks you what phase of life are you going through?
Correct.
And usually most people, when they fall into a chronic illness sort of pattern, they have been through some major life change.
Of course.
Yes. So we'll come to a rapid fire session.
Okay.
So make yourselves comfortable on the couch.
Or make yourselves ready. Or
So I want to know individually, and we'll start with you, Palak, what is it that you do for your own mental health?
Well, I take a break twice a year.
Okay.
I go for a holiday on my own,
Okay.
sometimes with my friends and sometimes on my own, because I feel that is extremely important for me to nurture myself emotionally, physically, and mentally.
Okay.
So, yeah, and spiritually. Yes.
Okay.
And for me, I think what I have started doing is I have becoming more forgiving to myself.
Yeah.
I don't hold myself to some very high standards anymore. I'm okay failing now. So I
Okay.
think that's been
Not
one
a
of the most,
perfectionist.
yes, that's been one of the most relieving changes I've done for my mental health.
I think women just, are in, like, they're just
Trained to
professional.
be, yes, yes.
Uh, so what's the first word that comes to your mouth when you think of Ori?
Ah, liver.
I mean, I think he's found his flow state. Yeah, so I think flow state. Yes, it's just
Flow
Yeah.
state.
living.
He's amazing. You know, he's there.
I would like to meet him. If the message ever goes out, I would like to just meet Ori.
Just live, he's living his life beautifully. And
Yeah.
that's how exactly I think we all need to be. I think living the way he is, enjoying his life.
Right. I think being yourself in this kind of an environment,
Where everybody wants a label, right? And
Yeah.
he's refusing to take a label.
he's
on.
refusing to
Yeah.
take a
And
label.
there's, I think, a happiness quotient with him, like, that is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So, which I feel is so important
Yeah.
for each one of us to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you've been dealing with so many patients. So I want to ask, in terms of women's health, what do you think are the top 3 problems, that you would, if you were to summarize, most of the problems of most of your patients that you've spoken to?
Okay. I think self-care is something that, women do not know how to take care of themselves. They try getting everything, like they make themselves the last priority, unfortunately.
I see.
So that itself is the problem to all the problems.
Okay.
They do not want to give time to themselves. I like, so which I feel is very, very important, self-care. And they do not they do not prioritize themselves, as I said, like, so like that's a very, very important factor. Second, I feel is they health comes as a secondary part in their lives. Everything else is, first. Yeah, like
Everything
they-
external comes
external,
first.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I think I don't think it's a problem, but I think we all face managing, as a mother and as a housewife or a homemaker
Yeah.
or a person who's doing a job.
Yeah.
When it comes to management of
Yeah,
all of it,
Yeah.
it just becomes very difficult to balance out. Then
They're constantly guilty of not balancing.
the guilt that
The
actually
guilt.
they're
Yes.
living in,
Yeah.
that again is the root cause of many issues,
Right.
and it's also the root cause of many diseases.
Right.
So whenever a patient comes to me, I always tell them that you have to remove the guilt, that you're giving time to yourself,
Yeah.
Right.
because you need this, because this is what is required.
Selfish is not bad.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I mean, she's covered most of the
Yes.
relevant points. What I generally see in my practice are, number one, I think people pleasing.
Okay.
Because I think that's a very auto setting within women, that we have to please everybody around us.
Yeah.
Number two, I think taking our roles way too seriously, forgetting that we are also human. So that role of a mother, role of a wife, role of child of aging parents, we take it very seriously. So we forget that as an individual, I have a life too,
Right.
and that should also be as much of a priority. And number three, I think it's not recognizing anxiety. I think one of the most prevalent mental health challenges that women have, which starts from a very young age, is
Okay.
anxiety. And it just does not get diagnosed for the longest time. It reflects in the way you interact with the world, reflects in the way you interact at work, in your relationships, but
Yeah.
we refuse to acknowledge and work on that. So I think those three would be important.
Well, I hope this raises some awareness.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Yes.
What's your take on cheat meals?
Very, very important. Absolutely important, because as I said, they have that happiness quotient again, as I was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's important for you to be happy.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to be on a restrictive diet. Maybe if you are, having a chronic illness, or you are going through kind of a therapy, or whatever issue you're going through. But it's very important for you to be happy internally.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I feel till the time you do not get it from there,
Yeah.
you will not be able to heal yourself.
Right.
Because it's not the diet that works individually, it doesn't.
Right.
You have to be happy.
Right.
So I think cheat meals which make you so happy,
Yeah.
from there,
Yeah.
they're very important.
So don't hesitate on having that glass of wine.
No, wine is
Wine
a
is
part
ne-
of my diet, by
Yes.
the way. So wine
It's never
is
a cheat meal.
something-
It's always welcome.
Wine is not a cheat meal. Wine is a
Yeah.
part of the diet.
And I just believe that these labeling of diets is what is causing a lot of food anxiety among people, right? I mean, why should you even call it a cheat meal? Who are you cheating? You're eating something which is making you happy, and that's fine.
That is true.
Yeah. So while as holistic healing philosophy, while I'm repairing your relationship with food, I am
Right.
not going to make you feel guilty or
Yeah.
or make you
Right.
feel shitty just because you decided
Right.
that today I want something which is not part of my meal plan. That cannot be the case. So
Right.
at the end of the day, your body is so intuitive; it will tell you what is working for you, what is not working.
That is true.
So if you can enjoy your glass of wine, if you can enjoy your dessert, and your
Yes.
body is giving you a signal that this is
Yeah.
enough and let's not repeat it, go with that.
Right.
But never criticize and call it cheating. I think that labeling needs to be done away with food completely.
There was a friend I know, and this is just a one-off incident where, she's always usually on a very strict meal plan,
Yes.
and every time she comes on vacation, she travels with us. She's not working out. She's eating everything.
Everything.
She's eating all day, but she doesn't put on a single kilo. So I think the aspect
The attitude, right?
Yeah.
That I know what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
know what it is going to do for me and my
Yeah.
body, and I'll take care of that. I
Right.
think at the end of the day, that is the goal. That you know what to do with it.
What do you do for self-care?
So, generally people try going out and going out for vacations to heal themselves.
Yeah.
They take a 1 month vacation, a
Yeah.
7-day detox,
Yeah.
a 14-day detox. So I have a detox all my life. My life is made like this now.
Yeah.
I've changed my lifestyle, as I
Yes.
told you.
Yeah.
So, for self care, I take care of myself every day by nurturing with the food that I'm eating,
Yeah.
with taking care of myself emotionally,
Yeah.
taking care of myself by doing physical activity,
Yeah.
doing my breath work,
Yeah.
taking out time for myself, which is extremely important.
Yeah. You've insisted upon taking out time for
Yes,
oneself
absolutely.
over and over again.
Absolutely.
What's the one thing that you do for self-care?
So like I said, personally, what changed for me was I have started asking for help.
Okay.
I think my earlier self refused to ask for help. I had to do it on my own. So, small example, to be here today, I know we decided it at the last moment, and of course, I had things to take care of, like my kids pick up and everything.
Yeah.
I asked for help,
Yeah.
and it is so easily available, which I
Yeah.
realized after I started asking. That it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to go for something that you want and delegate something to somebody else. So that was a huge thing that I started doing for my self-care. Otherwise, my table was always full, and I was always overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, I think when somebody is always too busy,
Yeah.
always doesn't have the time, it's a sign.
It's a sign. Of
something
course.
is not
Yes.
Of
okay.
course.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, what is the funniest response that a client has given you? Tell me one funny reaction from a client, which you can't forget.
Because maybe by the time we get clients, they've been through the rigmarole of
Yeah.
being dejected everywhere.
Oh,
they
yes.
they very rarely have anything funny. But I think for me it would be the fact that, oh my God, I can't give up food.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm not asking you to give up food, I'm just asking you to give up certain things.
Right.
And like, no, I can't, I just can't.
Right.
So I think that's the that it borders on funny, but of course there's a whole lot of behavioral and mental health work that we do, but yeah, I think that would be it.
So actually, I think, my patients, they come through with so much of trauma.
Correct.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So there is no funny side to it. And
Yeah.
what also happens is, Nida, that, I see the kind of pain that they are coming
Yes.
with.
Yeah.
And because I get into their shoes, I empathize with them. So actually, to tell
Yeah.
the truth, I really can't find any fun. I actually,
Yeah.
feel, I don't feel bad for them. See, I don't have sympathy for
Right.
them. Actually,
Like
I
empathy.
get very angry with them because when they do not continue with the plan. There are a
Right.
lot of patients who
Yeah.
come to us and they leave within 2 months or 3 months because they are not able to give in
Cope,
100%.
yeah.
They feel that, it's very difficult.
Okay.
Or maybe they feel that, they're not able to cope up with it.
Yeah.
They're not being able to give time to, for their self-care.
Right.
So, for their own reasons. So, actually, I don't find it funny, but I feel very angry.
Right.
I think one of the funniest things, that it's the thing, not really, the situation is not funny, it's just a funny approach that happens is when parents come with their kids
Right.
and they tell me that the child needs help,
Right.
and I tell them, that's a child, you will be part of the process. No, I don't need help,
Right.
I'm fine, I'm good, the child is the problem.
Right.
Okay, so you have to
Of
help the
course.
child, so yeah, always, right? So I think for me that becomes a funny situation, because I'm working on a child to become more healed, become more aligned, and I'm sending him back in the same environment where you're,
Right.
I keep telling them, unless you want your child to come and say, listen, you guys, y'all are not aligned, okay, y'all are the ones who are ruining me. If you don't want that situation to happen, you better become part of the process, so I think that's one of the funny things that really lands up happening with children.
Interesting. I feel you already shared this on this podcast some time back, that a lot of people come saying, I have no issue
I have
as
no
such. I
issues,
have no
yes.
emotional issues as
Yes.
such. Just there's this slight.
Yeah.
this-
My job. So I'll tell you this instance. I had somebody come to me saying, I'm just having problems in my job. Everything else is fine. Everything else is great. My
Right.
job is a problem.
Right.
And after the first session, we actually realized that there's problem with her relationships. There's problem happening on a health level. And she's like, oh my God, what have you done? You've increased my number of problems.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm like, I haven't increased. You were just happily ignoring those
Right.
and focusing on that one job aspect
Right.
of things, So yeah,
Right.
that does tend to happen. That I have no problem.
Right.
Just the slight issue.
How we make one thing the center of
Center of everything. right?
everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
We've all been through that. I think every millennial will connect with what
I'm
you're
sure.
saying.
I'm sure. Yeah. You find just one target.
One
for-
target.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think what just sharing, because we're talking about mental health and nutrition as such, I had gone for this meditation called Vipassana. And I feel that also added to my, because just the yoga practice was not, there was something which I felt it wasn't enough.
Correct.
And after spending that quiet time, solitude time for so many days, I mean, I did the shortest course, but still it was absolutely mind-blowing. You start seeing your own, I think on the 7th or the 8th day,
Yeah.
I started to see what kind of dramas your own mind is
creating.
capable of creating. It's
You're
unbelievable.
reconnecting to yourself.
Yeah.
So
And-
which is
and
the
so-
beautiful part of it.
Like she said, breath work and even meditation
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
quite an element of the healing process, because I think some of the most honest, brutally honest, and shaking conversations you have are with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why a lot of people find meditation or Vipassana difficult is because you don't want to have those conversations. You want
Yes.
to run away,
Yes.
and you don't want to say, you know what, I played a role in my problem.
Yes.
So and something like quiet or solitude forces you to have those
Yes.
conversations, that
Yes.
maybe you're the problem.
Yeah. You are the biggest part of your problem is you.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so I just want a quick, since we've been using these terms, I want to know what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say gaslighting?
As more common than you think.
Narcissism?
I should not be saying it.
No, please, you should.
Bollywood.
I mean, because she probably knows.
There you go.
Yeah. And so narcissism is for me, I think the word that would come across is really toxic relationships. So start analyzing whether you're in one if you think your relationship is toxic.
Right. Healthy relationship.
Extremely important for a healthy life.
I think space. A healthy relationship gives space to grow, to think, to express anything. You just give space.
Okay. Just to end our podcast, I want to ask, you know, a lot of people think women, it's difficult for two women to work as partners. You know, women are too catty or they
Yes,
end up
yeah.
fighting. And a lot of people around me, I've heard them say this, you know, when you choose a business partner, make sure it's the other gender because, you know, you might not have that rapport. So how has your experience been as two working mothers, you know, running this venture all by yourselves?
So I think it's been great with both of us because Bhavna and I are, I think, as far as our family lives are concerned, we both come from a very similar background.
Backgrounds. Yeah.
Okay.
A very, safe space. And we both have small kids. We
Yeah.
understand each other very, very well.
Okay.
So when it comes to work, we are able to adapt to each other's life very easily.
Easily.
There's
very
a
easily.
relatability
Yeah.
factor.
Absolutely.
Always.
She
yes.
said it as a matter of fact, like we understand each other.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was
We understand why, you know, when you have to
Yes.
go be a mommy, when you have to go be a wife, when you have to go take care of your parents. It's just very easily
Yes.
understandable.
right.
And I think more than that, what I would like to, so we've
And,
also had
and I
those.
think your first point was value systems.
Yes.
Like you
Correct.
come from a similar
Similar.
thought process.
Absolutely, which is very important.
Right.
Very important because
Right.
you know the kind of background that she
Yeah.
comes from
Yeah.
and the background I come from.
Yeah.
They're so similar in the
Yeah.
thought process. So
Correct.
you know, it has been very easy for us to work with
Work
each other,
together.
and actually it's been a beautiful journey, I would say.
Yes.
Because you know, and even work wise, when we take care of our patients,
Yeah.
she's able to easily, you know, sometimes there are days when I'm not able to take up a patient because
Right.
of my own personal commitments or
Yeah.
maybe too many patients are coming up.
Yeah.
Then she comes in, or maybe similarly, we handhold each other and
yeah,
just
yeah.
take care of it.
Did this happen organically or did you? I mean, I know you met her for your, you know, healing journey.
It happened very organically. Very organically, actually.
And
It
and
was
I
like-
think what made it or what keeps it together is also that we find each other growing as healers, as people, as
Right.
mothers. You know, we bank upon each
So
other to
important.
get that experience. You know, we are very
Yeah.
open. We are very open about the
Yeah.
fact that I have a shortcoming with this. Can
Right.
you help me? So
Right.
that
And-
has been very easy.
Yes.
So
and-
transparency.
Very, very transparent.
And I think also we want us to grow together, and we
Yes.
want that okay, the other person also should be growing along. I
Yeah,
mean, like, you know,
yeah.
I always want that Dr. Bhavna should be there, you know, wherever like she can.
There's an
be.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So even if I'm not there, if she's
Yeah.
getting an opportunity,
Yes.
I'm more than happy because
Right.
that's what exactly, you know, I think women need to be doing to each other
Right.
rather than having those cat fights.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
need
Yeah,
to be
because
taking care of each other.
I think the cat fights also come with a lot of your own insecurity, right? The reason why we function well is we have a very similar vision, we have a very
Yeah.
similar approach, we have a very similar requirement out of the work that we
Right.
do. And it's not about grabbing opportunities. It's
Right.
about letting everything flow easily. I
And
mean,
your
there's no-
goals are same.
very similar,
also,
very,
yeah.
very similar. Yeah.
Wonderful, lovely. Thank you for doing this podcast. Thank you for trusting me.
No, it's been delightful. This is
Yes.
this is our first
Vodcast.
vodcast. Yeah, I still have to get used to that term. It's our first vodcast, and we couldn't have asked for a better host to handhold us through it.
Absolutely,
Okay, so
absolutely.
everybody's been a delight out here to work with.
Here's
And
to
it's
many more.
worked so beautifully because I feel that, you know, you're such a calm person and you've made it so easy for us. So I couldn't.
Yeah, like I
think
said,
of
we
a
couldn't have asked for a better hand holding to happen. Seriously.
You're too kind, and here's to many more.
Yes,
And
of course.
all
of
the
course.
best for your venture. And I'm looking forward to your podcasts as well.
Yes, now since we put it out there,
yes,
it better be happening.
It has to be happening.
Yes, yes.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.